Okay, today I was going to talk about the calendar a little bit. This message is going to be just a discussion that I'm going to record, but I intend to send this to a couple of different YouTube sites. So the Fight for Truth is a site that I follow. I'm going to send this out to them, and then the Way, I think it's called, the Biblical Fellowship. I was just watching a video on the calendar there, so it's really going to be the inspiration for using this stellarium is through the Way, and then talking about the moon cycles to the Fight for Truth. So, but for everyone else, I'll just go through this kind of discussion because I'm looking at these cycles and I'm trying to better understand. I'm not a stargazer or anything like that, so I downloaded this software, this stellarium software, and I'm trying to reconcile, my understanding of sort of these phases here of the relationship of the sun here, the moon here, and then our background stars. And this is going to be on in here on my spreadsheet. I've just got this set up to kind of look at this ecliptic path through the stars. This is on a cylindrical type projection right here. So this would be sort of unfolded out. If you were to look at this through a, let me see here, the constellation star chart. If you're going to look from like a single meridian and look at from your particular location on a meridian, from the equator to one pole or the other, you would be getting a different presentation, a different image. So that would be your projection on a single meridian type thing would be like this. But this stellarium, I think, does a pretty good job. So so there's this other projection. So this is what I did here was on stellarium here. You can set this up. I just put this, I just called it the origin. I set it right on the 0 degrees latitude and longitude, so to speak. So I'm not looking at any particular place. I'm just looking at the mechanics of sort of how this moves from the equatorial. So instead of this equatorial view that's been kind of stretched one way or the other, this helps us see it kind of in an easier way. So now I've got this set at level ground here, and we can take the ground off by hitting the button here. So we could, this would be a projection of kind of, how you would be seeing it, through everything, just depending on your sort of cosmological viewpoint or beliefs. But at any rate, this is pretty interesting software because you can take off the atmosphere. So we've got, as soon as the sun comes up, obviously we have the ionization, so we don't get to see these at the same time, the sun with the stars. But this software allows us to hide the atmosphere. So if we just wanted to look at just our stars and all these other luminaries, we could do that. So very cool software to play around with. I'll turn the atmosphere back on here. And I'll set the time of this. I've been running this for a while, so we're up to December 20th right now. So I'll set this back to current time, which is set time to now. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm tracking these because I'm trying to understand these cycles. So we're seeing our orientation here again is at the equator, and we're looking eastward, and we're watching how these, basically you're seeing how this would be distorted based off of the shape of the atmosphere, the lensing and everything. So depending on which way you go from the center point. But you see how, okay, Leo is coming out, right? So we have Leo right here, then Virgo is coming out, and then the sun at this point in time, which right now it's late November, so the sun is going to be in Libra right here. So off of our, it's going to be south of the equator, our east compass line right here. So it's going to be in Scorpio or Libra kind of area right in here. And then the moon is going to be right behind here in, what is it, Sagittarius we're calling that. So it's going to be off of, somewhere in there. Somewhere in off Sagittarius here. And of course these follow this ecliptic path over the course of the year. And then the moon is going to be up to 5 degrees off one side or the other of this ecliptic path. It's draconic cycle. So again, I'm trying to understand these cycles better. Again, watching the order, you see that as it's described as sort of the scroll being presented to you in the order of March. So you're using these different terms. So you're seeing the order in which they're all traveling this same easterly direction. The stars, the sun, and the moon. But you see the order. So we have the Cancer, the crab here, and then we have Leo, and then Virgo. So you see the order. So when we're looking at this cylindrical layout right here, we're seeing that all of these luminaries are moving from left to right on this page in this order, right? So it's Virgo, and then it's Libra, and then it's Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, right? The water bearer back to Pisces. All of these, you're seeing the order in which these are being presented here is from the right to the left. So all of these are moving in this same direction, left to right. So the moon we see is back here. It's gone further back. We're in the goat, Capricorn, so we're further back here. We're still on this other side down here. So you see how the sun is just slightly going to be changing. Ever so slowly we'll be moving back on the sun day to day, about 1 degree per day. And then the moon cycle for this is going to be, that's the sidereal of the moon. So we've got the synodic, the phasing of this, but we've also got the sidereal as far as where the moon is going to be. But I just needed to wrap my head around this because, like I said, these are coming in this particular order, and this would suggest now, which I've had this wrong, I've been thinking about this wrong. So the stars, as they're coming out, are going to be the faster, these are the fastest luminary would be the stars then, not the sun. So some of my sun to star relationship has been wrong, or it hasn't been totally correct as I'm understanding it now. So again, these are all moving. The scroll as it's coming out, they're all moving left to right here along this path. So the sun is they're all moving in the same direction. It's just that over time the sun is going to be lagging on the stars by a little bit, by about 1 degree per day. It's going to be dropping back, and then the moon is dropping back significantly. A couple days per house, it's going to go all the way back. So 27 1/3 days, the moon will have dropped back all the way back to its same position amongst the background stars. And then again with the sidereal for the sun, it's going to be 365.256363 days is what it comes out to, of the sun to drop all the way back and then end up in the same position amongst the background stars. Now that's different than the tropical day for the sun, however. So when we look at I'll expand this out here, I guess. If we're going to look at the sun on these other instances here, so this is going to be on a globe model here. We're going to use the this globe model in this instance right here to try and understand, because this is going to help us with the shape of the atmosphere, so to speak. But It'll help us understand this. And we've looked at this before. Anybody that hasn't looked at this, go back in the Encampment of Israel or the Fibonacci videos. I can't remember where I discussed and showing the relationship of this 23.5 degree mark being 9 times phi squared, and then the relationship to 9 degree crossing right here into 0. So this puts it proportionally to phi. So there is a harmonic relationship to this the solar cycle in its movement here. But just to understand this, as it's moving from the spring, right, we've got this as it's going from point to point, that cycle from equinox to equinox, any point that we're going to put on here, I guess this varies, but this comes out to 365.2422 days, I guess it is. So the difference between those two is kind of where we're looking at all of these different tables. And same thing with the moon here. So the moon, again, our synodic and our sidereal cycles, and we're through observation. Through observation, we're coming in and we're breaking this down, and this is what it's coming out to. So the moon sidereal, 27.321661 days. The moon synodic, 29.530588 days, and that comes out to this right here: 27 days, 7 hours, 43 minutes, 12 seconds, hours, minutes, and seconds. The sun sidereal, so the time for the sun to get to the same point of the background stars, 365.256363. The tropical right here. Now the stars were, again, I had thought that the sun was quicker than the stars based on the way that this gets presented, because this gets kind of confusing, I think. But yeah, the stars would be faster. So again, when we're looking at the if we're going to start a lap, we're going to start the lap and see where on your mark, get set, go, and basically the stars are going to finish. They will be ahead of you by a day, not the sun being ahead by a day. So if you were just to start at one point, start your clock and then time it in solar, we're counting by solar days, tropical days, but by the time the sun gets back to the same point, the stars will have made one more revolution. So I had this backwards. So when I was looking at the relationship here, I had the what do you call it here? I had the stars less than 1. So this would have to be adjusted. So this should equal our sun sidereal plus 1. And then our relationship then for the stars related to the tropical, the sun tropical, would be should be this number. How did I have that set up? I'm sorry. So yeah, that's going to be the sun sidereal divided by, so that's got to be backwards. So this should equal, again, our stars are going to be the fastest, and we're going to divide that by our tropical sun, and then multiply that back into I'm going to have to look at that. I'm going to have to play around with that as that's changed. But at any rate, I'm looking at a bunch of these different cycles because, again, I'm looking for a harmonic, and I've already found connections to phi in sort of the biblical numbers if you go back and look at those other sheets, because again, our calendar and our construct are going to go hand in hand. So the way everything's created in the construct are going to be, that's going to be they're going to be married up with each other. And again, I see this differently as far as how this is being constructed. So when I'm looking at the Genesis account, and we're talking about Genesis 1 here, over here, and it's talking about how in the beginning he created. So these are transliterations, Elohim and the Et, the heavens, and again the Et, the earth. So I'm seeing this as like the whole thing, and then the cycle from beginning to end, heavens and the earth, and then there's a male-female relationship. So you're starting with the mind, and then so the thought or the pattern. So this gets in the paternal and maternal. So the pattern and the matter again. But the earth, she became chaos and vacancy and darkness over the surface of the abyss, and spirit of everything vibrating over surfaces of the waters. And he is saying everything shall become light, and is becoming light. And he is seeing everything from beginning to end, the light that is good, and he is separating everything between the light and between the darkness. So everything to the light and to the darkness he calls night, and he's becoming evening, and he's becoming morning, day one. So day one again is going to be this is spoken into existence as we understand it. This is all the metaphysical things, the sort of the shaping of light, which we can understand through magnetism. But at any rate, and then day two, and he is saying he shall become atmosphere in the midst of the waters. He shall become separating between waters to waters. He is making everything from beginning and the atmosphere, and he is separating between the waters, which from under the atmosphere, and between the waters from onto the atmosphere, and he's becoming so, and he's calling everything to the atmosphere heavens, and he's becoming evening, he's becoming morning, day second. So day one and day two, day three, you're going to start talking about how this relationship, this sort of, I see it as sort of like, you see it in the yin yang, as we know that it's creating the sun and the moon, the Lord that's dividing this. And I like how they have it, this imagery, has it like sort of twisted, so to speak. It's kind of like spiraled here, which you would think that must probably be happening, because the two sides are turning at different speeds. But you see how the sun is straight on, and then the moon is kind of off to the side and looking sideways. So this is kind of interesting on these old alchemical. I don't know what any of this crap means, but some of these imagery that they have on this stuff is kind of it rings true to me as far as kind of how I'm seeing this work with like what the moon is and what the sun is. But yeah, so that's interesting with this yin yang, the difference between side to side. You see, like just as a tree, the trunk and then the branches. These are, through the material water, and this is sort of the metaphysical water. So the two different kinds of waters and how they're bringing it in. This is just very interesting with the balance of that with the tree and growth, and this all ties into like phi and everything like we looked at before. But there was something I was going to show you in here. Yeah, just like sun and moon thing. But I'm rambling. We were talking about the creation of how this is. But if we look at day two on this, again, you're going to see how when you get into the creation of Adam and Eve, and he's the Lord. Again, you're going to start seeing how Yod He Vav He and Elohim, these transliterations together, Yod He Vav He, Elohim, and Et, all together. But he's talking about it's talking about like if you can imagine the day one and day two of how you're putting these two things together in the same way you're doing it with mankind, and taking it's just kind of what it's trying to give you a picture of, and giving you an actual what's the word I'm looking for, an example of kind of what it's trying to say, or how this day one and day two's the base construction of everything. So again, you're going to have the vertical, the male axis and the female axis, and you're going to put these two together, and they're going to become one flesh, right? They become one when you put them together. So day 1, day 2 of creation, oops, and then what was it when you get into day 4? So day 4, yeah, so you're going to be talking about how it's that force that the Yod-Heh Vav-Heh is which it's creating the, I don't know if it talks about that yet though, but it's creating the seed. It's what's going to draw out and vegetate and draw out the sort of the pattern of how the seed is going to be drawn out. But it's going to sprout. That was the word I was looking for. But it's talking about how shall become luminaries in atmosphere of the heavens, and to separate between day and between the night, and they become for signs and appointments. Again, the 10th of appointment and our appointed numbers. So that's all going into the tabernacle and then the encampment as far as what we're talking about of appointed numbers for days and years. So what was I going to say with this? Oh, being set in the... So all these luminaries are set in or coming from what we're calling the heavens. And again, the heavens are going to be what we're calling day 2 creation, when they become one flesh and you're putting these two things together, the Y and the X axis together and creating this. So it's creating the Lord. One thing, if you look at again, the Lord is clothed in majesty and the Lord is clothed with strength, where he is encircled, right, and girded himself and established and cannot be moved. But you know, if you go and look at, I think I found this, but if you go and look at these high altitude balloons, you're going to see there's no stars. So the stars have to be set in the firmament, and you can look at in the atmosphere. And if you look at, you know, Lindsay's channel, you go back 4 years ago, he had done this this sort of experiment where you can kind of see how these how light can get suspended in atmosphere like this. It's pretty interesting. So you can go look at these videos that he has. These are pretty interesting experiments that he did to see how the light gets suspended in there. But all that to say, that all gets you down the path of, in the way, yeah. So I was looking at the calendar, and it's showing how this is the synodic periods of the moon. And then, so this would be sort of the sun over the course of the year, and these would be the different, the Chodesh, he calls them, right? The months. But this would be your different months or your different constellations, and then the moon being in the different constellations would be your color graph, and then the synodic period of the moon is right here. So you see how we can start to get a harmonic. And again, harmonic is related to phi, and if you go, we're finding phi all through the numbers. But at any rate, so this is going to be, this would sort of be your, how I'm seeing the creation of the Lord. This would be the Yod-Heh Vav-Heh, the division, the one flesh, putting these two things, the male and the female together. The male has a male and a female side, as does the female, and you get these quadrants of this chamber that produces the bridegroom, that would be the sun. So the sun would get produced in this thing, this chamber, and this chamber rotates, we know. And then there's this atmospheric reflection, the lensing of the glass that's happening here from inside to outside, that people get, you know, this is what kind of gets people down the ball theory. But anyway, you got this is rotating. It's the center point of this rotating, but then it makes makes its analemma thing. So that's the sort of the path of the sun as we see it here, and then the moon again is going to be this dielectric overlay. You can go look at all that kind of stuff, but the moon is going to be, somehow it's going to be coming up through the rest point. Again, Isaiah 66:1 kind of tells us about this, the throne of the rest point and where that is. But oops, I don't know what I did there. So at any rate, this the moon here, like I said, is going to be this other circuit, and it's going to be this dielectric, just like that, the face, right, projecting up. And that moon, just depending on, again, these are both turning. So this cycle is turning, and we see there's an analemma for the moon, but there's also this cardioid thing for the moon as well. So this moon is doing this other, if you're going to look over top, the moon does this weird, this cardioid, like the Riemann hypothesis, all of that kind of stuff. So there's a mathematical thing happening here with the moon. There's an analemma and the rotation. So all of these different cycles for the moon, and then whatever with the stars being drawn out, I think Job says they're taken out or something, but you know, whether or not the stars are on some kind of an analemma too, but you know, again, we don't see that much of the stars. We don't see what's going on the back side of it. We can only see this other part of the stars. So the daylight, you know, we can't see the stars, this other half of everything, as you know, this might suggest, you know, because we get everything else. But this is a cool app. I thought it would help understand some of this stuff of these movements, like where is the moon right now. We could look and see where exactly it is on our chart here. And I don't know where we're at. The moon is now it's in the crab, between the crab and Leo, so I've been talking a while. So it's all the way back over here. So it's in here, yeah, whatever. So it's going to make this path. But so one thing I found, I wanted to mention this to you, because you're talking about the moon being the witness, and I think that's right, because again, the phasing of the moon is going to be relative to the sun, because of it's got the same thing to do. That the Lord here, as this is turning, is going to phase the moon. Phase it out, right? Because this is going to be turning and this is turning, and however we're seeing this through, it's slowly going to end up this neutral, the sort of curtain of the Lord that's dividing this from positive to negative it's going to drown it out, so you can't see it. You're not going to see it at whatever layer this is happening, but so that's the phasing, and then you have the sidereal. So when you look at the difference of these two things, so mathematically I was looking at the difference down to the seconds, and then you end up with this figure. Where is it? I don't know what I do with it. Okay, the moon minus the sidereal. So you end up with this amount of days. But so I started looking at these cycles to see when they hit, like when you hit a clean day. So just like the moon sidereal hits at 765 days, 28 cycles to 765, and then with the synodic period of the moon, that hits at 1447 days, pretty close at 49 cycles. So again, you have a 7 happening with your 49 and 28, and so I think that one repeats fairly often, and then they start to not happen, right? They start to taper off, and then these cycles don't stay true. But the difference between these, when you look at the difference between these two cycles, I did find a harmonic here in this that happens continuously, and it happens at, there's a pattern here, so it goes 67 to 148, and then it happened at what was it, 134 to 296, and you see how this is all going to be under. So we're right under 444 at 201, and so on and so forth. And then, but then it happens, you get one where it happens even at 225. Again, 225 is that number for Levi that we found in the encampment numbers. So it happens at 225, and then it happens again at 268. So what I did was I pulled this all out to find when they happen, and whether it's going to be that first time that it was over was with 225 there, which we associate with. Again, that's popping up. So 793 popped up at the 359th interval, the cycle between these two. So again, that shows up. You're going to see all these numbers in the when we're looking at these censuses, and again, that big number for the ecliptic that we found that was Judah South was 793, right? 39,650 reduces to 793. But that shows up again when we find the number for Levi in the first census, 225. That number shows up. So a lot of these numbers start showing up in here, just as our clean number for the moon sidereal, this 765. You know, that is a number that shows up in our second census with Judah. And, you know, people like to look at that 153 number. You know, that's one of the factors of Judah's number right here. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But you do hit this pattern that repeats, and it repeats every 1,053 cycles at 26 days. But this pattern that I found is, and this goes on forever. This always hits at this 67, 24, 43 pattern, right, like this. So the pattern that repeats is you're going to be under the number at every 67 cycles, and then you're going to have 24, 43, 24, 43, 24, and then you have 67. A pattern of 67 for 5 straight cycles, and then you get this 24, 43, 24, 43, 24, and then you get 67 where you're over. So it's always this under, 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 over, under, over, under, over, over, under. So this pattern just keeps on going on. So I don't know what that means yet, because I'm going to have to relook at the star, because I had the stars wrong. I was interpreting those wrong, but you do see some of this stuff showing up, and there is an interesting thing that happens at 294, obviously. So when I divide these base cycle numbers, so when I'm looking at the cycles, 294 shows up as a clean number when I'm breaking these down, and by 364 to 294. Which I know that's relative to the Zadok number again, and I'm finding other ties to, you know, that Zadok number of 294 that's interesting. So I did find that cycle of 294 times 364 and then divided by 293, and finding basically the tropical year within, I think, 11 minutes or something. I can't remember how far it was off, but you know, that's a known thing. I didn't know it was known. I kind of find that separate. But some of the other things, like 2940 times, if we put the square root of 5 over here, so we're going to say that this space equals the square root of 5. So again, you're going to be this number, and we know that this is 11 1/3 days short of an eclipse. So we can just divide this by 18. Because an eclipse is 18 years, 11 days, 8 hours, and all of that stuff that we found with the Levi number in the second census of this Ot, the 407 being, you multiply that by 5 and you're going to get the eclipse. So at any rate, I just wanted to share that. I don't know if that's going to make sense to you, but yeah, you are finding, again, because this is going to be harmonic again because of the nature of the two sides of this, magnetic to dielectric, and understanding sort of the chamber that's going to produce the sun, and the chamber, so to speak, that's going to kind of how we're going to get the moon. Understanding these two things, and that they're a ratio of 5:1, which is a harmonic. And then now with the difference, I did find a harmonic difference between these two cycles of the moon sidereal and the synodic. So I don't know if that makes sense to you. I'll probably have to clean that up and make it more clear, but just thought I would share that with you, and hope everything's going well. We'll look back and see that stellarium. This is really cool. Really enjoyed this. So the folks at the Way, and I watched your calendar video there, and that was pretty interesting. I really enjoyed. This really helped me see and understand some of these cycles, and the mechanics of what's working here. Like I said, I don't know that this is, again, entirely accurate, because we're not seeing this when you're not in this other cycle. So yeah, how that's exactly happening, I just know that we just can see that, you know, again, this rotation, and then this node point does its analemma. We see the moon, however this is being projected up, we're getting the same analemma and the cardioid with the moon. And then the stars, you know, are they doing an analemma thing here too? We just don't see it because it's on the back side, or, you know, what exactly is happening with the stars. It seems like they're pretty fixed, and they're not doing anything crazy, at least on this side of it. So, which on the analemma, again, you wouldn't see that, right? So if you're only seeing one side of the analemma, it would just look like it would be a circle, but, you know, you're not really seeing the other side. And as they're brought out, you know, you don't know how the scroll's being folded up on the inside there. So who knows? Could be doing a cardioid in there, could be doing an analemma, maybe. You know, we can't really, I don't think we can know. So at any rate, hope you enjoyed this, and we'll be seeing you.